Good afternoon and welcome to South Wedge Mission. My name is Matthew Nikoloff. I am the priest here, and we are really excited and grateful for you to be here with us as part of the body of Christ in this place to practice, to center, to contemplate, and to commit to action in the world on behalf of our neighbors and on behalf of God. This is a really exciting, joyful day for many people, regardless of how you voted. We're going to enter into and acknowledge and celebrate, center, and also to lift up the joy that is going on this weekend. Not as a way of being against any particular individual or party, but to really acknowledge the labor and the work and the meaning that this has, particularly for women and for women of African descent, of language and culture. And to just allow ourselves in this very difficult year on a 70-degree weekend in Rochester, in the midst of a weekend where many are feeling ecstasy, to let joy sit with us, to let us sit in that joy. And if we don't have joy because of the results of what happened this week, to find that joy within us, because joy is always a glimpse, a taste, and a pointer to something that is bigger and beyond us, but is always encompassing us and loving us. So whatever your joy may be this day, even if it's a sorrowful joy, I invite you to sit with us in that, and to also give thanks and to lift up and allow and even to learn from the joy of others. Tonight's liturgy can be found in the bulletin and the link on this Facebook Live post. I invite you to take a few deep breaths to center your body in this space, to center your mind and your heart, your whole being in this space that you've created for worship and for liturgy this night as we practice our opening chant. You need to give an Om syllable. Om. Deep Om that brings your head down into your heart, down into your gut. Om. Om. Let it reverberate and open you up, make your insides dance, make your whole body flow, grounded in the space you are. Om. Keep oming, om with your whole being as I sing this chant. Deep calls to deep, faith calls to faith, love calls to love. We serve the growing Christ. Om. Deep calls to deep, faith calls to faith, love calls to love. We serve the growing Christ. Om. Call to practice, a blessing by Jan Richardson. You can prepare, but still, it will come to you by surprise. Crossing through your doorway, calling your name. In greeting, turning like a child who quickens suddenly within you. It will astonish you. How wide your heart will open in welcome for the joy that finds you so ready and still so unprepared. You could not stop it if you tried. How this blessing begins to sing every time it sees your face. How it turns itself in wonder merely at the mention of your name. It is simply how joy works, going out to you when you least expect, running up to meet you when you had not thought to ask. And from inflesh.com, This is the ancient cry of the prophets. This is the holy proclamation of our time. This is the call upon our lives. Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. We will keep laboring together to make it so. No act of love is made in vain. Harboring each other, let us keep reaching for God's future. And may the peace of Christ be with you always, and also with you. Take a moment to use your device, your email, whatever you have to extend peace to someone who needs peace this day, to celebrate with someone celebrating, to grieve with somebody grieving. And may the peace of Christ be with you always, and also with you. And for some of our readings and our peace song today, we're going to use a poem written by womanist, contemplative theologian Barbara Holmes. She is of African descent, and these are her words. But she wrote a really amazing book called Joy Unspeakable, Contemplative Practices of the Black Church. She's one of my teachers at the Living School for Action and Contemplation. So we're going to just listen to her words. Remember, they are her words, not mine. About joy with this refrain. Joy unspeakable and full of glory, full of glory, full of glory. Joy unspeakable and full of glory, the path has never yet been told. Joy unspeakable is not silent. It moans, hums, and bends to the rhythm of a dancing universe. It is a fractal of transcendent hope, a hologram of God's heart, a black hole of unknowing. This is Barbara speaking. For our free African ancestors, joy unspeakable is drum talk that invites the spirits to dance with us and tell tales by the fires. For the desert mothers and fathers, joy unspeakable is respite from the maddening crowds and freedom from church as usual. It's joy unspeakable and full of glory, full of glory, full of glory. Joy unspeakable and full of glory. Half has never yet been told. For enslaved Africans during the Middle Passage, joy unspeakable is the surprise of living one more day and the freeing embrace of death, chosen or imposed. For Africans in bondage in the Americas, joy unspeakable is the moment of mystical encounter when God tiptoes into the bush arbor, testifies about divine suffering, and whispers in their ears. Don't forget, I taught you to fly on a wing and a prayer. When you're ready, let's go. It's joy unspeakable and full of glory, full of glory, full of glory. Joy unspeakable and full of glory. The half has never yet been told. This is Barbara Holmes speaking. Joy unspeakable is humming how I got over after swimming safely to the other shore of the swollen Ohio River. When you know that you can't swim. It is blessed assurance that Canada is far, but not that far. for African members of the invisible institution, the emerging Black church. Joy unspeakable is practicing freedom while chains still chafe, singing deliverance while Jim Crow stalks, trusting God's healing and home remedies, prayers, kerosene, and cow patty tea. For tap dancing, boogie woogie, rap, rock, blues, griots, who hear God, joy unspeakable is that space-time joy continuum thing that dares us to play and to pray in the intricacies of life. It is the belief that the phrase, the art of living, means exactly what it says. Joy unspeakable and full of glory, full of glory, full of glory. Joy unspeakable and full of glory. Our half has never been yet told. Joy unspeakable is both fire and cloud, the unlikely merger of trance and high-tech lives, ecstatic songs and a jazz repertoire. Joy unspeakable is a symphony of incongruities, of faces aglow and hearts on fire, and the wonder of surviving together. Joy unspeakable erupts when you least expect it, when the burden is greatest, when the hope is gone after bullets fly. It rises on the crests of impossibility. It sways to the rhythm of steadfast hearts and celebrates what it cannot see. It's joy unspeakable and full of glory, full of glory, yeah, full of glory. Joy unspeakable and full of glory. Our half has never yet been told. It's joy unspeakable and full of glory, full of glory, full of glory. Joy unspeakable, full of glory. The half has never yet been told. Those are the words of Barbara Holmes from a poem she wrote for her book, Joy Unspeakable, The Contemplative Practices of the Black Church. And indeed, this is a time of great joy for many in our nation, especially for women of color and culture, as we see the election of our first female African and Asian descent vice president, on behalf, as a result mainly of the labor of so many Black women in this country. Today's gospel draws and resonates with this experience. And even though it's a kind of bizarre gospel to read on this day, it is what the lectionary has given us. I invite you to hear it from the standpoint, not just of those who lose their oil, for those who have been pouring out their labor on behalf of others for so long, often without compensation or acknowledgement. The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 25th chapter. The kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout, "Look, here is the bridegroom. Come out to meet him." Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise replied, "No, there will not be enough for you and for us. You had better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went with him into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the other bridesmaids came also, saying, "Lord, open to us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. A lot of this homily is going to draw on a really amazing post by Susanna Porter. The link is both in your bulletin, and I will make sure it's posted in the description of this video. If nothing else, click on it right now and go ahead and read it. You can skip the next 5 to 7 minutes of me talking. It's a really phenomenal piece. But the gist of this piece by Susanna Porter taught me something I didn't know, because partly I am shaped by a male-centric, hegemonic, cis-normative view of the text, and it's such a joy. It's a joy to discover new dimensions of these texts, especially a difficult text like this. To see how, it's not great to see how misogyny and patriarchy have shaped the world, but to acknowledge that they have blinded us, and then to discover that when we liberate ourselves from these forces, it's not just about the liberation from social conditions, it's also about receiving more of the gospel that was kept from us because of conditions that didn't reflect the kingdom of God. And so to hear Susanna Porter open this text for me, it wasn't just about Susanna Porter's brilliance, but is also about the brilliance that comes when we let the kingdom do its work. When we let the kingdom come and bring the fullness of God's kingdom, to bring 5 lamps full of oil, to bring 10 lamps full of oil, to illuminate the world we live in, not just 5 full and 5 empty. Susanna Porter notes that while this passage may seem really harsh to us, that the 5 who weren't quite ready just get kicked out, and even the 5 who are ready, instead of helping the 5 by giving them a little bit of their oil, just say no, that we have no oil to spare, and send them off, right? This kind of goes contrary to how we think of God as all loving and all forgiving, and everyone gets enough and everyone's welcomed in, and look, everyone is welcomed in. But from a womanist perspective, think of all those women who for their whole lives have labored harder than men, harder than women, Caucasian women, of lighter-skinned women, harder than women who spoke the dominant language or were part of the dominant culture, who labored to make sure that their lamps were full. Queer persons, LGBTQIA+ persons, who labored to get their ordinations recognized, to have their rights and their marriages recognized, while many of us thought we could just show up and benefit from their labor, benefit from someone else's hard work, and then say how progressive we were for being part of something we didn't really work to create. Could say I'm a feminist as a male, and without really having to change our patterns of living or acknowledge the wage we make, which is higher than those who are paid less. Imagine how that felt to those women. Imagine those women not as the privileged white women, but as someone like Kamala Harris, who has to work extra hard only to be the vice president instead of the president. For Stacey Abrams in Georgia. For the countless unnamed, unseen, unacknowledged black women who turned out to vote for the change that they believed was necessary in this country when so many men of all colors and stripes chose a more patriarchal figure. So often in the church, so often in our communities, so often in our world, so often in our homes. And I will acknowledge I am a novice in learning how to undergo my continual conversion in this in my own household and in my church. Women do so much. Women show up with full lamps, ready to celebrate, and are told, actually, we don't want you to be full. Give some of your fullness to those who didn't bother to do the work. That's what Susanna Porter is lifting up. And Susanna Porter makes this amazing statement. She says, What is the point of a blazing processional that is half on fire? What is the point of an election with not all the votes counted? What is the point of a table where all are gathered if not all are welcome? What is the point of neighborhood safety if all are not safe? At some point, sacrificing our oil negates the whole point of the party. In the parable, the foolish bridesmaids return to a groom who does not recognize them as participants of the party. They have missed the point about what participation means. Participation in God's kingdom never required some of us to only be half on fire for the gospel. And I don't see this as a condemnation. I see it as an invitation to bring the fullness of the gospel's power, transforming my life as a cis-heteronormative male person in the church. And I boggled all those pronouns, but see, I can afford to do that because they don't impact my social standing. But I could strive to do more. Not because if I don't, I'm going to hell, or because I'm going to be a bad person, but because when I go that extra mile, when I show up with the fullness of the gospel, transforming all aspects of my life, my identity, my sexuality, my politics, my practice, there's more joy to be had. There's so much joy happening in the world right now, and I don't think it's just because one guy lost and another guy won. I think it's a joy from women in particular who knew that they labored for 100 years protecting the right to vote to see this moment come to pass. They have worked twice as hard and seen twice the joy because of that. There's more joy to be had. There's a bigger feast to be set. There's a better country, a better church, a better kingdom ahead of us. But it doesn't just happen because we showed up and made one vote or because we felt really great this weekend, although we should absolutely protect, center, and hold that joy, especially those who labor hardest. But imagine if all of us showed up with our lamps full. Our lamps full of our willingness to be humble, our willingness to admit where we have been wrong or we have benefited from structures of power. Imagine us showing up and saying, yes, this weekend was amazing, but now there's work to do. And instead of slacking off now that one guy is gone, I'm going to work twice as hard now that conditions are ripe so that we can lay foundations for a future where we don't have to go through the last 4 years ever again. Where the church no longer pins its identity to the idolatry of a leader, but continues to live its mission faithfully, day by day, week by week, simple confession by conversion, by transformation, where we bring the fullness of the gospel. And we also labor and support the labor of others so that everyone can show up without having to make double the effort. We do our own part so we bring our fullness and so others can also enjoy their fullness rather than having to divide it for our halfness. I like to say so often that we strive to become holy, not so we can become holier than other people, but holier with and for other people. Our pursuit of discipleship, of mission, of faithfulness to the gospel is not just about who wins and who loses and what I get out of it. When all of us do our part of faithfulness in this tapestry, this fabric of the kingdom, not only is there enough for others, but that enoughness does not have to be taken away from those who already have been abused and oppressed, who have been robbed of enoughness. That's the vision that Christ proclaims here. And yes, it may feel harsh to those of us who want to get by on half the effort and double the benefit. But it is good news when all of us can receive fully what we need. And we can enjoy not just the fruits of our labor, but the joy of the labor itself. It is a joy to midwife this kingdom into existence, to love God into being, and to give the gift to one another of the fullness of our participation in the delight, the pleasure, and the joy of God's life with us in this world that God loves. So this day, let us give thanks for the labor of the women in our lives, of the women of color and culture, who have done far too much, and still give thanks and rejoice. Let our rejoicing be not just to graft off of what they're doing and to trail off of it, but to start doing our work so that this joy may be fuller. It may be a joy that is for everyone. It may be a joy that is truly the kingdom. Amen. For today's spiritual communion, let me find it here. Apologies. We're going to meditate a little bit on another song of joy, another song of hope that comes to us from our siblings of color and culture. It's often called the Black National Anthem. Lift every voice and sing. And it reminds us not only to take joy and delight in the things that we have accomplished, but to use that joy to sustain us for the long journey that is ahead. Not to move too swiftly past the celebration, but to relish it, to savor it, to digest it, so it may be nourishment and sustenance as we resume the hard journey of loving the kingdom into being. So that Christ lives in you and also lives in you. The Spirit in my heart greets the Spirit in your heart. The Spirit in my heart greets the Spirit in my heart. Let us give thanks for the gifts of love, for we delight to give thanks for the gifts of love. Once again, the words for this liturgy are taken from and fleshed. Spirit of compassion, when your kingdom feels impossibly far, you encourage us in hope that is neither naive nor escapist. In grief and loss, you draw us towards each other, strengthening our relationships, deepening our connections, building our power as we grow closer. Keep us from rushing too quickly through what makes us human, and help us to connect with the humanity of others. As we reflect on all that troubles our hearts, we remember the faithful whose labors have enabled our hope. They persevered through the struggle. They practiced joy in the midst. They revealed the power of community and the divinity of shared labor for liberation. In gratitude for the ones who go before us, the past that enables our future, let us bring our gifts to God. God, we bring all we have and all we are and all we feel into your care. In your company, we pray for collective wisdom, that you will guide us in the service of love, and that our commitments to our neighbors, especially those most afraid, alone, or vulnerable to violence, will be renewed with fervor. May it be so among us. Let us encourage one another in the slow and long labors of love, through honest witness to loss, to bearing together through grief and through joy, in remembering what we still can become. Let us press on in the work of drawing God's future near. Never alone, never without hope, the Spirit sends us with peace. And usually this is a time when I say commune with folks during the song. And I invite you especially today to commune with somebody whose labor you have benefited from. Someone who has done something maybe for free, they've let you support. They did some organizing to make sure that cause you care about came about. Maybe it's a council person or a neighborhood leader or a parent. Somebody whose labor of love has helped to liberate you. Give thanks for them. If you can, reach out for them. Tell them thanks. Donate to their cause. If this community has been that for you, the South Wedge Mission, you can help support this community at southwedgemission.org/donate. There's a lot of good organizations doing that kind of work. I only pray that all of us can be that kind of labor of support to one another. And we'll sing together the Black National Anthem by James Walden Johnson. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring for the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let us resound far as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Have a God of our wind, stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when home unborn had died. Have not a weary feet, yet with steady beat, come to the place for which our parents sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the slaughter. Out from the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our stars cast. God of our wearies, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on our way, let us keep. Thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever on the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the place where our God will be meant to be, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. True to our God, true to our native land. Thanks for bearing with me and my cough today. We've journeyed far these last 400 years. Many of us have much to learn. Many of us have been carried by the spiritual labor of the traditional black church and other churches that have kept up the prophetic voice of Christ while the white church has slumbered. While we've done half our part and they've done double their part. I pray that we would take this new chance before us to those of us who identify as white Christians in particular, white straight Christians in particular, white cis heteronormative male Christians in particular, not to just take advantage of the labor of others, but to show up with our own lamps full so that the feast can be what it's meant to be. Hear this blessing from Jan Richardson as we go. Blessed are you who bear the light in unbearable times, who testify to its endurance amid the unendurable. When everything seems in shadow and grief, blessed are you in whom the light lives, in whom the brightness blazes, your heart a chapel, an altar where in the deepest night can be seen the fire that shines forth in you, in unaccountable faith, in stubborn hope, in love that illumines every broken thing it finds. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native Center your joy this weekend, protect it, relish in it, let it fuel you, and let us go forth to continue the labor for the next 400 years, and know that God is with us as we walk with God. Thank you for being with me this week, with us at South Wedge Mission, and we'll see you next week at the same time. God bless.